Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining us today. My name is Matt Anderson. I'm the Director of Outreach for the Space Force Association, and today we're going to continue with our series of Space Warfighter Talks. And we are very privileged to have the very distinguished Colonel Devin, call sign Salt and Pepper, who is the commander of Buckley Garrison up in just outside Denver in Aurora, Colorado. And sir, it is a real pleasure to chat with you today. Thanks for spending some time with us.
Absolutely. I certainly appreciate you you doing this and taking the time out and talking to me. And as my wife says, I tend to use all the words. That's her way of telling me that I talk too much, and I will do my best not to do that today.
All right, Colonel, thanks a lot. Before we get going too much, we just want to thank all of the Space Force Association members that are watching right now, as well as our founding members and corporate sponsors, to include Lockheed Martin, Braxton Technologies, Numerica, Boresight, AGI, and our newest founding member, Deloitte. So thank you all for joining us. Colonel, you have an incredible career, as I alluded to, and for those kids out there that are watching and say, I want to be just like this Colonel Pepper guy, I wanted to brag on you a little bit and just say, hey, in 1989, he started out enlisting in the United States Air Force. And in 1996, actually, got his commission through OTS. And through a lot of hard work, 3 master's degrees later, commanded at the squadron, group, and wing level, and now at the garrison level. What an amazing career that has taken you all over the globe, Korea, the UK, all over the United States. And we're just really proud to have you here to share your thoughts on leadership. And I know as we talk about integrity, service, and excellence, you know, when we look at you and we talk to your people, I talked to your command chief just the other day, and man, it's all about service for you. It's all about the airmen and now the space professionals that you're serving and supporting up there in Buckley. So, you know, without further ado, I'd like to continue on with a couple of the questions, if you don't mind.
Sure, absolutely. Thanks, Matt. Thanks for that introduction.
Absolutely. You know, big picture for our audience, the Space Force was formed almost exactly a year ago, December of 2019. And no less than about 1 month later, you know, more recently, General Raymond, the Chief of Space Operations, has really bragged on Buckley for some events that happened last January. You know, we had some American troops over in Iraq. Tensions were rising a little bit with Iran. And at the time, we were wondering where this would go, but the mission there at Buckley is very important. And it's public knowledge that Buckley played a key role in saving American lives when the Iranian missiles found their way into Iraq. And that just put Buckley's right on the map, and it also started shedding some light on where the transition from the Air Force to the Space Force would go. And no less than you found yourself a wing commander at Buckley in charge of supporting what we would now call the garrison, but also directly running the mission. And then more recently, that has changed a little bit. The Space Force has reorganized. A lot of people like to generalize it, kind of like how the Army sets things up. There's a garrison commander, there's brigade commanders in the Army, and one is in charge of the mission, one is in charge of support. And thankfully, you've seen both sides of that. You've been an ops group commander down at Peterson before. You've been a wing commander in the old way of organization. Can you talk to us a little bit about where that went, even if you wanted to talk about last January, and how you see it now with your role and everything you're charged with as the Buckley Garrison commander?
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Matt. So first off, let me just say, you know, I started off as an airman basic, right? 31 and a half years ago. And certainly if you would have told Airman Pepper back then that he would be a garrison commander for the Space Force 31 years later, I would have said, what planet are you living on? And certainly, you know, a Space Force, what is that? I will tell you, things have a way of changing and changing quite rapidly. And certainly standing up Space Force has moved us into the right direction. Here's what I love about Space Force and the way we have organized Space Force is we've made it lean and lethal. We're talking only 16,000 people really to focus on getting after the mission. So because of that, as a wing commander, as an Air Force wing commander, certainly I'm an ops guy. I love operations. I could do operations all day long, every day. But certainly to be able to run a wing, I spent 80% of my time dealing with installation responsibilities. So only 20% of my time I actually dealt with doing operations. Now, what I can tell you is I certainly got an opportunity to do operations as an ops group commander. So that was wonderful. But as a wing commander, as a sitting Air Force wing commander, most of my time was spent taking care of the installation. So now with Space Force, And this is this is what's so important, and I really want people to understand about the way we structure and organize the Space Force underneath the Department of the Air Force, is to understand that the Air Force will continue to run the bases and the infrastructure to allow space operators to really focus on getting after the mission. So I haven't seen it from both ways. While I do miss operations underneath being a wing commander, because that's just my very nature. I'm a space operator at heart, and I love doing ops. However, in order to support the space operators and the mission deltas and the headquarters Delta 4 that is headquartered here at Buckley Air Force Base, we support other mission deltas, and I'll get into that later. But to be able to support operations, we have to make sure and maintain focus on the garrison, and that's airmen. So that's 99. So here's where the big difference of what the change has been is now I just get to focus on the 99.9% of the airmen here at the installation, making sure that we can maintain and support the Space Force operators who are focused on conducting that tactical level operations every single day. Because here's what's different. The Air Force is changing, but certainly Space Force, we have always we are deployed in place. So we execute our mission from our installations. So very few units in Space Force have to deploy forward to another AOR, to a combat region, or to another theater to do combat operations. We actually do combat operations every single day from our installation. So we have to be able, as a garrison commander, my job is to make sure that that this platform, this warfighting domain right here on the installation is protected and secure. And there's power and all the infrastructure that you think of, power, water, cooling air, HVAC, comms, to support operations. So this is where really it goes back to the other 80% of my job, which was to run the installation. That's what I do on a day-to-day basis. And my airmen are the ones who are responsible for that. So certainly we still have to maintain our focus on taking care of the space operators. So with that, what's my vision? My vision has always been to have space-focused warrior airmen dominating today's fight. So what does that mean? That means that when you are an airman assigned to Buckley Air Force Base, I want this assignment to be that person's indoctrination on how we get after the mission set of Space Force. So I'll give you an example. If you're an airman and you're stationed at, let's say, Langley, and you're supporting the F-22 operations, or if you're stationed at Grand Forks or F.E. Warren and you're supporting ICBM operations. As an airman, whether you're working in the Med Group or Mission Support Group, Security Forces, LRSC, you start to understand that particular mission operations of those units that are assigned to that base. I want our airmen to have that same focus and that same understanding of how we execute the space mission when they're assigned to Buckley Garrison. So that's really my focus, is making sure that our airmen are also getting indoctrinated and understanding the space warrior mindset while they're stationed here at the garrison.
Oh, that's great. I think it's, sometimes to give another example, to give people an idea, especially a lot of our SFA members are not steeped in the space profession. They understand maybe the industry side of space or commercial space, but essentially we have your organization that has mostly airmen. And I like the U.S. Air Force shirt you're wearing there, because I know you're supporting the 99% of the people that you're commanding, and that is the Air Force. However, it's very easy on a traditional Air Force base to say, hey, airman, what are you supporting today? And an F-22 takes off, like you alluded to. You say, I'm supporting that. What is the mission that you do support up there at Buckley? Can you explain that to our audience a little bit?
Well, this is where Buckley is really, really unique. And a lot of people, unless you come here, there's a lot of folks that don't understand the really important mission sets that go on here at Buckley. So I'll just give you a quick example. There are 6. I am responsible for ensuring the installation for 6 Air Force, Space Force, wing level equivalents on this installation. That's 6 Air Force or Space Force wing level equivalents here. So one in particular is, of course, the headquarters mission Delta 4, which is headquarters here. Those are the guys who are responsible for all things missile warning. And as you mentioned earlier today, they are responsible for defending not just the CONUS, but also for providing missile warning to geographic regions around the world. So if Iran wants to launch against, is launching into Iraq like they did earlier this year, it's our satellites that detected that and our operators who provide that warning downrange, which of course, as you know, saved lives downrange earlier this year. Okay, that is just one. So mission Delta 4, they're responsible for space-based flying the space-based infrared satellites here at Buckley, from Buckley, and also they're responsible for the ground-based radars that are located around the globe. In addition to that, we also have the 140th Wing, which flies the F-16. That's the Air National Guard Wing that they are doing the aerospace control mission, defending our airspace on behalf of Northcom here from the installation. So that's another wing that's here on the installation. We have Air Force Reserve Personnel Center. That's the folks who take, that is the reserve component, similar to AFPC, the folks who take care of all of our personnel records. This is the organization, wing level organization, that takes care of all the records for retirees and Air National Guard folks and reservists. And then you have the Air Force Aerospace Defense Facility, Colorado. So when you see those really large golf balls on the installation, some of those aren't just from the Space Force, but some of them also belong to the NRO and the Aerospace Defense Facility, Colorado. And as you know, they have a large footprint here for the intelligence community, not just NRO, but also NGA and NSA. And from that organization, we have every service represented here on the base, to include Coast Guard. So that was the first thing that I didn't realize, that, hey, we have not just Air Force and now Space Force personnel and Navy and Army, but guess what? We also have Coast Guard that are doing an intelligence mission here as well. And then, of course, we have another organization called the Naval Operations Support Center. This is a large reservist support center that really gets all the Navy ready to deploy downrange. So if folks have to go downrange to support Navy operations, this is the organization that does it. That's also run by a Navy captain. And then, of course, Army Aviation, which is out of here. They fly 3 different helicopter platforms. They are doing the majority. Right now, that unit is mainly deployed overseas. However, when they're here in the States, they're doing a lot of the combat search and rescue on behalf of the governor here in the state of Colorado. So again, these are all large organizations doing national level missions that you can't just transfer or pick up and send somewhere else. This is what Buckley Air Force Base provides, and it's our job and my job to make sure that all of these installations, all of these mission sets can continue and conduct their operations morning, noon, and night, as we do 24/7, as we do here.
Yeah, that's incredible as you think about what you just described. And it really makes a lot of sense why the reorganization happened, the breadth and depth of responsibility that you have now. You know, you're looking at almost 100 tenant organizations, 14,000 base personnel. And
That's right.
Oh yeah, there's this tiny little thing out there that Colorado's a pretty nice place to live. So you've got nearly 100,000 retirees that are hanging out in the local area as well. And I know that is a dedication that we have as a nation to those that have served in the past. However, I do know that during these times, probably what's been first and foremost on your mind is protecting people from COVID-19, but also getting the mission done. Can you talk a little bit about some of your successes and some of the things you've done, you know, since the pandemic started earlier in the year?
Yeah, absolutely. And here's what I'll tell you. Every garrison commander, every installation commander, one thing that the Department of Defense asks us to do, and here's what I certainly appreciate of my Space Force leadership and Air Force leadership, they have allowed us to be commanders. So certainly we have to respond to COVID as we see it on our installation, and to be able to react so we can preserve the mission. As you just heard me say, we can't just pick up and transfer this mission somewhere else. We have to do this mission. And so my overall goal is to make sure we can still conduct operations here. So with that, we have to balance all DoD asks us to do from any installations that are close within distance from each other. Just coordinate with each other. Just make sure that we're all responding kind of appropriately. So between myself and Colonel Hartless at USOF and Colonel Smith at Peterson Schriever Garrison and Fort Carson, we all kind of get together to make sure that we're all kind of in sync on what response we're taking when it comes to health protection condition declarations, or what our non-mission essential percentage will be, what our group size will be, and kind of what our public health emergency reactions are going to be. So we've all pretty much have been in sync. Of course, here at Buckley, it's been a little bit, because we have been kind of the Tri-County region, the Denver County, have had more deaths than anywhere else in the state. I have had to probably be a little bit more restricted than some of the other areas. But what I will tell you is certainly the goal has always been to balance risk to mission and risk to personnel. So as long as I can continue to maintain that balance, and I think, and for me, as you just mentioned, still being able to provide those critical mission services, not just to the personnel that work on the installation, but also our retiree population, because we have a lot of retirees that really use Buckley for a lot of their pharmacy needs, and also the commissary and PX. So I've been able, and my goal has been to make sure that we can preserve mission, but also preserve the ability for retirees to have access to the installation, so to take care of their needs. Now, earlier this year, we actually partnered with the 140th Air National Guard, where we actually put some members, because we did not know how bad the virus was going to hit this installation. So my goal was to make sure that we had mission-ready crews that could do the mission 24/7. So we actually sequestered a large group of crew members, to include our CE personnel and comm personnel, away in our lodging. The 140th Air National Guard activated their DFAC force. They brought in some members, provided 3 meals a day to these members, and we sequestered them, just moved them from our lodging to the mission operations floor so they can conduct operations. We stayed in that posture just until we can really figure out exactly how bad the COVID pandemic was going to spread here on the installation. But that is something that we could not have done that without the partnership with the 140th Air National Guard actually standing up their DFAC for us and providing services to our active duty members. So, but again, it's always a balance. It's always a balance that I try to maintain, as far as the level of services we can provide, and also what kind of restrictions we need to put in place to preserve the mission on this installation.
Yeah, I think it's really encouraging. I think I heard you say mission 100 times in there. And without a doubt, for those, a lot of our members and often some of the children watching, they don't realize what the Air Force Weapons School is. And you're a graduate of the Air Force Weapons School. So you proudly wear that patch. And some people, what they think of is the great movie from the 80s of Top Gun. That's the Navy's version of weapons school. And so it's ingrained in you since you were a much younger officer. Hey, we got to figure out a way to get this mission done. And I think leaders like yourself and around Colorado that are garrison level commanders, shutting everything down with no risk is really not an option. We have a national level mission, and you mentioned the F-16 Guard out of your installation right there. To explain a lot to our members, hey, if we have a hijacked aircraft coming across the central part of the United States, like we saw on 9/11, it's those guys sitting alert 24/7 that NORAD will launch on a moment's notice. And that is part of the mission that is just as important as the one we talked about, the early missile warning overseas anywhere with our geographic combatant commands. So thanks for all the support you're doing to all those tenant missions, the 6 wing level units that are there. It's really a national treasure at Buckley Air Force Base. For some of our space enthusiasts, can you explain, it was interesting for me to learn as I talked to your command chief a few months ago, actually, they assume your garrison is made up of all Space Force people, but as you described earlier, it's mostly Air Force. How many space professionals are actually in your garrison right now?
So right now, I would have to defer that question over to Colonel Richard Borkwin, who used to be my vice wing commander, but now he's the commander of the missile warning Delta 4 headquarters here. But I would say, coming out of our operations group, the folks who are actually here, in addition to the intel folks who are part of Mission Delta 6, and the comm folks, the cyber folks that are here, that are part of Mission Delta 7 that we support here on the garrison, I would say probably around, and I have to remember too, that there are space professionals over that work in ADFC as well, who are underneath Colonel Jake Middleton. So from a Space Force, again, I'm probably going to get this number wrong, but I would say there's probably about 400 to 500 space professionals on this installation. So again, that's a very small number of folks, in addition to the hundreds of folks that we have in the Air Force, on the Garrison, and to include all the other services. So again, all 6 services are represented here on the installation. So it's a fantastic, it's kind of a joint base without the term joint on tacked to it.
Yeah, no, that makes sense a lot. But you yourself, can you talk about the decision for not just yourself, but your rank, your level, the decision to apply to transfer to the Space Force out of the Air Force? Is it optional, or is it, hey, if you want to continue on leading airmen or space professionals, is it say, hey, this is the way it's going to go? Or can you explain that process a little bit?
Yeah, I will tell you, Matt, that's a great question, because I think right now, again, because of the fact that we decided to go lean and lethal with the Space Force, there were certain organic career fields that transfer, that people were offered to transfer into the Space Force. And certainly like space operators, officer and enlisted. And of course, some of our cyber folks who exist both in the Air Force and in the Space Force, they were offered to come into the Space Force. And some of our intelligence professionals, those were also shared AFSCs with the Air Force. So all of us are volunteers. So we all volunteered to transfer into the Space Force. And here's what I'll tell you. It was, for me personally, having served 31 years in the Air Force, and I still haven't transferred in yet. So I'm still waiting to transfer into the Space Force. But as soon as that happened, I decided to transfer to the Space Force because for personal reasons. But one of the main reasons is I'm excited. I'm excited to see where Space Force, to be on the kind of the cutting edge here and the foundational period of how we grow and build Space Force. So this is exciting times for anyone who's out there who may be interested in joining the Space Force. I would absolutely, in fact, I have a nephew of mine who right now is trying to enlist into the Space Force because he sees the excitement. And first he was excited about me being in an Air Force and an airman. But as soon as we stood up Space Force, I got a call and said, "Uncle, how do I transfer into the Space Force? I want to come into the Space Force." So there's an excitement out there where people see what we're doing and they want to be a part of that. And certainly I personally want to be a part of that and be on the foundational point. And I just personally, transferring to the Space Force was good with my family. Our personal goals and our family goals, they kind of lined up and meshed up together. So certainly I would not be here if it wasn't for my wonderful wife, Alicia, my 2 beautiful kids, and they are excited about this next stage, this next adventure that we're about to take. But certainly there's an excitement out there from other AFSCs who want to come into the Space Force. In fact, I was just on a call recently with a service member from the Navy who said, "How do I get into the Space Force and transfer into the Space Force?" So certainly we are still, and Congress is still working out right now to get elements of the Navy and elements of the Army transferred into the Space Force. But there's an excitement out there right now for other folks coming into the Space Force.
Yeah, thanks for explaining that. You mentioned your family, Alicia and Madeline and Lucas. I'm sure they've watched the Netflix show Space Force just like my kids, and love it or not, hey, all press is good press, and they've come out with a season 2, and I know the kids are all excited because many of the character from The Office is on there. But it's an exciting time, and it's an exciting time that's for us in the Space Force Association. We were formed 1 month before the Space Force last year. So just like the other services have Air Force Association or the Association of the United States Army, for example, the Space Force Association, our main job is to support the warfighter. And that is those space professionals up there at Buckley and down here at Peterson and across the globe. They're doing the very important mission. But up there at Buckley, I know the mission has continued to grow through the years, just massively. Can you give us a peek under the tent of what might be on the horizon for Buckley in the future, whether it's related to the Space Force, United States Space Command? A lot of people confuse the combatant command with the actual force. And there's just if you could give us a little peek under the tent, what do you see in the future up at Buckley?
Well, Buckley, and again, I just remind folks that Buckley has the largest geographic space of any base in Colorado. So we have more room to grow than any other base in Colorado. So certainly we have always been looked at for additional mission coming here to Buckley, and certainly we were one of the finalists for to headquarters for the U.S. Space Command, the Combatant Command. Unfortunately, the latest news as of 2 weeks ago, I believe it was, is Colorado Springs is now has been selected as the final location, at least one of the finalist locations. So Buckley is no longer in the running for that. But certainly we could host a combatant command if we needed to. There's always new mission that the Air National Guard is, of course, trying to bring the F-22 here, and that's new mission growth for them. We are also the ADFC, Aerospace Defense Facility Colorado. This is a key location for them, especially with the IC community. And certainly they are looking to expand and grow their mission. So in the next 5 to 10 years, we could really see a lot of growth in the IC community's presence here on the installation. And even from a U.S. Space Force perspective, the culmination of bringing in and combining the overhead missile warning with the ground-based missile warning underneath Colonel Borquin and headquartered here at Delta IV, that certainly has opportunity to grow and expand. And so I look for that to grow in the next few years as well. And then we've got some other outside elements who are coming onto the installation. We just almost complete building a data, Amazon data repository here. And certainly there's always offers. I get emails all the time and meetings, planning meetings. We actually just did another site survey for a foreign F-16 unit to bed down here. Unfortunately, that probably will not happen, but certainly Buckley was one of the locations that they were looking at. So this base will be totally different probably in the next 5 to 10 years. There is still more growth from all over the DoD. In fact, the Navy's looking to expand that Navy Operations Support Center that I talked about earlier that's headquartered on this installation. They're looking to expand this NOSC to be one of the main hubs or NOSC for pre-deployment training in the Navy. So certainly they're anticipating a lot of growth here at the NOSC on this installation. So Buckley will continue to grow in a foreseeable future.
No, it's very exciting. I didn't know that's the largest in Colorado. When you think about Fort Carson in the southern Colorado Springs area, has a massive area of some training grounds, and it just kind of in perspective what you guys have up there at Buckley. So that's really fantastic. I wanted to shift gears a little bit to the members of the Space Force Association. And, you know, we've grown significantly over the last year, and we have a number of members up on Buckley right now. It is a professional organization, and it's a two-way street. You know, we want to support the warfighter, and we also have corporate and industry members that, you know, General Raymond came out this week and he said it multiple times, and I really appreciate your transparency as you discuss the future of Buckley, but he said, hey, industry partners, I don't want you spending $1 extra or wasting 1 minute on things that just because you're guessing what the Space Force is trying to do. And he just wants us all to be transparent, and he wants that relationship to be just like that, as we see the relationship with SpaceX and the Space Force. And more recently, United States Transportation Command has signed an agreement with SpaceX looking at point-to-point space lift anywhere in the world within an hour. There's no doubt initiatives like that has got people excited, and I'm not surprised at all why people are calling you, say, hey, how do I get on board with this? It was no different than, you know, the members of the Red Tails years ago, or when the Air Force broke away from the Army. There was an excitement to say, hey, this is a whole air domain. So the space domain is exciting, not just on the military side of the house, but commercial and civilian as well. It's very exciting. So, Colonel, we really appreciate your time today. I know you're a busy man. The amount of people, processes, organizations that rely on you every day, and you're still working hard up there. We really appreciate it. Are there any last thoughts you'd like to share or brag about your airmen and space professionals up there at Buckley?
Yeah, let me just piggyback on what you just mentioned about our partnership with industry. We can't do what we do without our industry partners. Certainly, they are a critical part of our mission execution up here at Buckley. And really, where we're going with space, this is where the excitement is really. DoD, we have a singular focus, right, on how we protect and defend the space domain. But certainly, everything that's happening with being able to use space for our advantage, that comes with a partnership with commercial partners that is only, I think we've only scratched the surface of it. Certainly we are moving in a direction where I think from our partnerships with NASA and commercial partners, where 10 years from now, we will see a more commercial availability in space, where we will see an expansion of space that we have never seen before. So certainly we are here to make sure we protect those interests and the U.S. interests in space, but certainly that partnership with industry is absolutely important. And I really appreciated what General Raymond said about being transparent, making sure that we are all lockstep together moving forward into the future. So with that, as far as my final comments here, it has been a pleasure for me to be here to see the change. And I'm sure you've heard this from many other of our other space leaders, is that I had an opportunity, give me a moment here, I had an opportunity to have a conversation back in 2015 with the Vice Chief of Staff of the Air Force, at the time, General Spencer. And during that conversation, he said, hey, one of these days we will have a space professional who is the Chief of Staff of the Air Force. I went, really? A space professional as the Chief of Staff of the Air Force. So that was 2015. We now have, just 5 years later, or really 4 years later, we have actually stood up our own separate service. So just the rapid pace of where we have been and where we are going, where we are now and where we're going is just absolutely fantastic, and it's phenomenal. And to see the change, to be a part of this, you know, you start thinking about pioneers such as Billy Mitchell and General Arnold, and you start, you know, thinking about everything that they had to do to bring on a new service and stand up the Air Force, and now to be a part of, you know, all the things that's required to stand up a new separate service of the Space Force is absolutely fantastic. So certainly I appreciate you allowing me to kind of give you my thoughts. What I will tell you, I will share with you is that this is still a partnership with the Air Force. I am responsible and I command airmen who are space focused and all about getting after our mission to enable the space mission. So we are still lockstep with the Air Force, and certainly we are all about making sure that we can enable that Space Force mission here at Buckley Garrison. So again, I appreciate you taking the time to talk to me and allowing me to give you a little bit of my thoughts.
Thank you, Colonel Pepper. We really appreciate the time. I'll just sign off by saying Semper Supra.
It's Semper Supra. Awesome.
Bye-bye.